You know, I just had this Native man in my cab, and he was at the Cooper Island residential school. And he was telling me the story when he was a kid there, that this young Native kid, probably 10, 11 years old, just a young Native boy, was crying for his parents. And he kept crying. And I guess the priest or the supervisor at Cooper Island told him to be quiet. And he kept crying and crying, and he wouldn't be quiet. So the pastor, he told me this story, that he went into the kid's room, grabbed him, and threw him off the fire escape 4 stories and killed the kid. Unalived the kid. How can you tell these people, so many white people saying that this is a hoax? The residential, I'm sorry, but it's not a hoax. There's so many stories that I've heard from First Nations people and what they went through. And, and then he was telling me his sister was raped and she got pregnant. She had the kid, and then they threw the fetus, the baby, into the furnace and killed it. This is many, many stories of the pain, the suffering, the torture that First Nations kids went through. Even my wife's family, her grandparents went through the Alberni residential school, and they had to bury their own classmates in graves on the yard. And then they saw the RCMP coming down the Alberni River and taking away bodies of these young kids. And then they were electrocuted for speaking their native language in the Alberni residential school. And then her other grandmother, I guess there was a young Native girl crying for her mother. And the priest walked over and kicked the little girl so hard, and she went down the stairs and died. These stories are true. So to sit there and say the residential schools were a hoax, go fuck yourself. And rest in peace to all these Native kids that were murdered at the hands of the government of Canada. And the last one was in 1996. And murdered because of the Catholic Church. And that wasn't God. To all you residential school survivors, that wasn't God. That was the devil dressed up as God, just so you know. I know it's hard to do and you can't tell the difference. Sorry, I'm stuttering my words. Differentiate, the difference between the Lord and that evil dressed up as the Lord. It's disgusting. That's what the devil does. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing, But the government and all that, it was a Holocaust. It was. And they still do it to this day. It's racial profiling. The system is set up. The most incarcerated people in Canada are Native people. The most kids in foster care are Native people. They're still persecuted to this day. They got boil water advisories for a lot of the reserves. I believe you. To all the survivors, I believe you. And may you find peace in your lives. And to the people that say it's a hoax, fuck you.